It starts as a joke, not even a good one. You're sitting in your childhood bedroom at 1:14 in the morning, eating cereal that's gone soft, watching some stranger on the internet get 30 million views for doing absolutely nothing. A video of a man standing in a field. That's it. That's the whole thing. And the comments are calling him a prophet. You put down the bowl. You open a new browser tab. You have no followers, no audience, no platform. What you do have is 2 hours, a free image editor, and a specific kind of anger that only comes from watching mediocrity get rewarded while you've been invisible your entire life. You build the account in 40 minutes. You give it a name that sounds vaguely institutional, something with numbers, something that implies access. You find a photograph of a server room taken in 2009 and you post it with no caption. Then you write a single sentence beneath it, something vague, something that could mean anything. They've been watching the grid since Tuesday. You go to sleep. You wake up to 400 notifications. You tell yourself it's harmless. That's the first rationalization. People believe what they want to believe, and if they want to believe a stranger on the internet has insider knowledge of something vast and unseen, that's their choice. You didn't force anyone. You just held up an empty frame and let them fill it in. By the end of the week, you have 11,000 followers. You start posting more carefully now. You've studied the patterns. You understand what the audience wants. Not information, but the feeling of information. The sense that someone, somewhere, knows something. That the world is structured and not random. That there are people watching the grid. You give them that feeling. You learn the language quickly. Passive constructions, rhetorical questions, strategic pauses built from ellipses. You never claim anything directly. You imply. You gesture. You let the space between your words do the work, and they fill it in every time. And what they fill it in with is always bigger than anything you could have invented yourself. 30,000 followers. You are still eating cereal in your childhood bedroom, but now you are eating it in front of 3 monitors. The first time someone takes your content and turns it into a news article, you feel something shift in your chest. Not pride exactly, something more uncomfortable. The article doesn't cite you by name, it cites an anonymous source close to the situation. And the situation they're describing is something you made up at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. You read the article 3 times. You don't correct it. That's the second rationalization. You tell yourself that if a journalist published it, it must have already existed in some form, that you just surfaced something latent, that the truth has a way of finding its own shape, and maybe you just helped it along. You post the article, no comment, just a link. Your follower count doubles in 72 hours. The first requests start coming around month 3. Private messages from people you've never met asking if you can confirm things, asking if you have contacts, asking if the thing they heard is related to the thing you posted. You don't answer most of them. The ones you do answer, you answer with questions, which they interpret as confirmation. Someone in one of the messages mentions a name, a real name, a person who apparently works somewhere important. The message says, "Is this connected to what you posted last week?" You don't know who this person is. You've never heard the name before. You reply, "I can't say anything further at this time." The name gets associated with your content within 48 hours. Threads appear. People start digging. You watch it happen from a distance. The way you might watch a fire you didn't exactly start, but didn't exactly put out either. That's when you understand what you're actually holding. You start to get careful. Real careful. The kind of careful that keeps you up at night not from excitement anymore, but from something else, something heavier. You create a second account, then a third. Each one plays a different role in the ecosystem you're building. One asks questions, one provides vague answers, one amplifies. They talk to each other. They cite each other. They create the texture of a community, and the real community forms around that texture like coral around artificial reef. By month 6, you have over 200,000 followers across your network. You haven't left the apartment in 11 days. The first real consequence arrives on a Thursday. You see it in the news, not your content specifically, but the downstream effect of it. A small decision, low stakes in the global sense, but real. A real person made a real choice based on something you made up in the dark. You sit with that for a long time. You don't post anything for 4 days. On the 5th day, you post again. because the silence had started to feel like admission, and because your network had already started to drift, and because stopping, you tell yourself, wouldn't undo anything. Stopping would just mean the thing you built gets absorbed by someone else, someone who wouldn't be as careful as you are. That's the third rationalization, the most dangerous one. At least it's me. Month 9. You've been contacted by 3 separate parties who want to work with you. One is a political organization, you don't respond. One is a media company, you don't respond. One is a single person, no affiliation listed, who somehow knows details about your operation that you've never made public. That message you read 17 times. You don't respond to that one either, but you don't sleep well for a week. You start varying your posting times. You start using new devices. You start thinking about what you've created not as a project, but as infrastructure, a thing that has its own weight and momentum, and that other forces have started to notice the way you might notice a river shifting course. You are no longer playing a game. You're not sure when that changed. Maybe it never was a game. Maybe you just needed to believe it was. The account gets written about in a feature piece, long form, serious publication. They don't know who's behind it. They describe the network as a sophisticated disinformation operation of unclear origin and intent. They use the word sophisticated 4 times. You read the piece in a gas station parking lot on a phone you bought with cash. You feel something you weren't expecting. You feel seen. Not proud, not vindicated, seen. The way something dangerous gets seen when it's finally taken seriously, which is not the same as being safe, which is in fact the opposite of being safe. You drive home by a different route. It's been 14 months. You have 340,000 followers across the network. You have a document on an encrypted drive that contains everything, every post, every decision, every downstream effect you could trace. You tell yourself you keep it as a record. Some nights you think you keep it as a confession. The internet doesn't know who you are. It knows the shape you've made. It knows the questions you've planted and the answers it built around them. It knows the texture of the thing, the feeling of the thing, the specific and particular sensation of receiving information from a source that cannot be verified and therefore cannot be disproven. You gave it that feeling. You built the machine that generates it. And now the machine generates itself. You check the network every morning before you get out of bed. Not to post, just to watch, to see what it's doing, what new thread has been picked up, what piece of something you invented months ago has surfaced again in a new context, wearing new clothes, cited by someone new who found it through someone who found it through someone who found it through you. It travels without you now. That should feel like freedom. You close the laptop, you sit in the quiet. Outside, the city is doing what the city does. Moving, deciding, reacting, forming opinions based on things that are true and things that feel true. And the space between those two things is where you live, have lived, where you built your entire architecture of influence and consequence and carefully maintained distance. Your phone lights up. Someone new is asking if you can confirm something. You pick it up, you look at the message for a long time, then you start to type.
The reply you're writing is 4 words long. You've learned that economy is power, that the less you give, the more they build. 4 words placed correctly will travel further than 4 paragraphs. You've proven this. You've proven it 340,000 times. You send it. You put the phone face down on the desk. The thing nobody tells you about building something like this is that it doesn't feel like building. It feels like finding, like you reached into the dark and discovered a shape that was already there, a hollow in the architecture of how people process the world, and you just pressed your hand into it, gently, consistently, until the hollow remembered the shape of your hand.